going on, guys? Welcome to the AMS Podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Michael Soto, discussing things about films past, present, and future. And we are on episode number 11. What is today's topic going to be about? There's a list of things I have in mind, plenty more to come. But I want to talk about something that you all tend to see in film, based on a depiction of famous events, a famous person, and it's going to be on biopics. And to some who may not know, the definition, biopic, short for biographical picture, is a type of motion picture that tells a life story of a non-fictional real person. Biopics typically revolve around historical figure, famous person, though they can be about anyone as long as the person actually exists or existed in real life. So, yeah, um, for me, when I watch biopics, it tends to be on sports figures. I'll watch anything of politicians, musicians, things like that, but me as a sports fan, I want to see stuff that I haven't seen or interested on knowing of what came before, especially of a football player back in the 70s, the 60s, the 80s, baseball player, boxer, excuse me, and things like that. So, um, make sure you all comment on your favorite biopics. And as we proceed here, gonna go to the next slide. And this next one here, gonna minimize myself. As I said, biopics, they focus on one character, usually the main person in the biopic is based on. The biopic also has events that will cover a certain time of that person's story it's based on. And then here's a little kicker. As certain biopics go, and I'll name a few movies in just a second, um, they tend, depending on who it's based on, they tend not to stray into that person's story. It may be controversial. It may show like I'm not trying to portray this in a negative way, the dark side of that person if they had a dark past, made a bunch of mistakes and things like that. And that's kind of like what you get sometimes out of biopic films. And so let me ask you all this. Does that give your hesitation in sometimes certain ways? Are you still going to watch it knowing the based the story of what it's being told? Like, for example, I knew about who Elvis was. I knew of his music, um, his fame and rise, and how he's so iconic, not obviously around the world, but in somewhere like Las Vegas. And to those who don't know, I know of his unfortunate demise. And this recent film, Elvis, starring Butler, Austin Butler and Tom Hanks, it depicts it in a certain way. And from what I've been told, the person that Tom Hanks played, people or family members of Colonel Tom Parker. If you've seen the film, Tom Hanks looks like he wore a lot of makeup, and that's what the person looked like. Um, who was his manager, portrayed him as the villain. And it kind of almost looks like he does in a way, in the sense of like he overworked Elvis, which just led to stress and the anxiety and things like that. And I could probably just look it up, or you all can look up things that were fact or fiction in that movie, amongst so many other biopics that are done. So I'm going to proceed here and go on to the list of films that have been done in bio. But before that, like I said, um, as I said in the beginning, um, biopics are done on sports figures, historical events based on people, music, Hollywood, or public figure. And as I look here, I'm gonna name a few films. In the corner, see Jamie Foxx, who played Ray Charles. Um, I'm drawing a blank. The film based on Facebook. I saw this one on Netflix the other day. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Um, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I'm usually good at remembering names. He portrayed the person who basically let the whole world know that the government was watching us, and it ends up being like a suspense thriller. Then you have, I can barely see some of them, but there's ones like La Bamba, Bohemian Rhapsody, other musical artists, and then over here in the corner, Unbroken, which is based on the story of a track runner, I believe, from what I remember, who ended up going to the Olympics and then joined the military and just basically went through hell being captured by the Japanese. It's been a while that I've seen this movie, and he's just trying to get the obstacle of not being broken by all this treatment that he faces while being captured. Then you have American Sniper, just a variety of different movies that are being portrayed in different ways. And one thing too is I read the book American Sniper and Lone Survivor as well. Once those certain events are based off of, once again, Hollywood tends not to share certain details about that person or the events that they were involved in. It's up to the people that make these movies, and whether you all like it or you felt that they kind of like watered it down a little bit. I'm not trying to put it in the sense of watered down in a bad way. Excuse me, watered down in a bad way, but making it seem that they were portraying them in a positive or negative light. So, depending on how you all see it. So, as we proceed here, I'm going to minimize myself again. You got a list of films. I'm going to list a few here: Lincoln, Malcolm X, Walk the Line, Ray, Bohemian Rhapsody, Rocket Man, Selena, The Social Network, Steve Jobs, which was done by two films, Michael Fassbender, Ashton Kutcher, two separate films, 42, Ford v Ferrari. I think I spelled that wrong. Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, a film, really good film by Tom Hanks, who portrayed Mr. Rogers, Wolf of Wall Street, The Fighter, First Man, 127 Hours, Lone Survivor, Black Klansman, Captain Phillips, Fruitvale Station, Argo, Moneyball. The list goes on and on. And when I looked it up, that's one of my things. Lawrence of Arabia is actually based on a true story. Um, and that's going to be on my bucket list and stuff. But all of you all that have seen these movies, you end up deciding for yourself. Did I put Straight Outta Compton? Yes, I did. The reason why, one thing too, when that movie was released, from I watched a lot of other people that do this kind of stuff. Suppose it got very critically well received, but to those who have the hesitant of not watching biopic films, it ends up being in the sense of that supposedly Dr. Dre had some other controversial stuff that was a part of his life that wasn't portrayed. But for the most part, as all these biopics are done, the people that were involved in NWA are going to be part of the movie process and only want to tell what's being told. And that's up to them in any sort of way. Bohemian Rhapsody, also a critically well received film. People didn't like that one as well because they wanted people wanted to see a little bit of the dark side of Freddie Mercury and the band Queen. And at the time before that movie was released, this is a little kind of like a movie fact that I remember hearing. Before it was released, Sacha Baron Cohen, who's, to those who may not know who that is, of Borat fame and other really funny films, but he's a really good actor. He wanted to do a film of after Freddie Mercury died and what the band had to deal with. But the band of Queen wanted it to be based on Freddie Mercury and certain facets of how the band formed. Then this is a you can look it up. Freddie Mercury went solo. Then they got the band back together before his passing later on down the line. So it just depends on how you all perceive it. For me, I'm not very picky. It's like I said in the beginning, I didn't know much of Elvis's backstory. I knew little facets of it. From what I've been told too, when he met Lisa Marie, his wife, the age difference was, I believe, a little bit younger. So just certain different little things, and pretty much, as I was saying, and I brought Elvis up again. It just depends on how you all perceive or how you think a biopic should be told. Should it be on a person who's still living and they not be afraid of spilling the tea of stuff that nobody knew about or did know about? We've all made mistakes. We've all done great things in life. So have all these famous people. They started their way up to the top tier and they made struggles as we all do in life as well. So, yeah, no, it's one of those that leaving for y'all to decide. How do you all perceive biopic films? And is that something that you all like to enjoy watching? And just making sure that it ends up becoming something that you all want to see or feel like not your cup of tea. So let's go ahead and continue. And as we proceed, as I started doing it, once, as I said in previous episodes, or if you all have not heard this, Hollywood is going to the film industry is going to make anything about everything. I don't have Apple TV, but they're making a film about how the video game Tetris is made. So Hollywood is going to make any kind of facet or just something. The invention of a cell phone, they're going to do something like that. They're going to just keep going and going and going. Hollywood even made a movie about emojis, and that got critically panned, but they did it. They're going to give it a shot. So how do you all feel about biopics when they get made or they're done? Are you on the, as it says here, do you like them or you don't like them because, excuse me, because it ends up becoming that they don't share certain things that you know of that particular person, or you feel like, okay, they gave a certain thing, they portrayed so and so athlete, historical figure in that way, and it's just basically like, all right, would I see it again? No, but you kind of have an open mind of how you perceive that person, of what you know of from history and things like that. So for me, a friend of mine, I mentioned him in the past, asked me a question, and I'm gonna minimize myself here. Who would I want to see a biopic on? And I named him four names. A fifth name, it could be anybody, but reason why I only named four names, I'm gonna leave it open ended for you all to decide what you want to see. I would want to see a biopic on Kobe Bryant. He was known to the NBA as, for his era, one of the greatest basketball players ever, winning 5 championships, retiring, and then winning an Oscar as an athlete for an animated film based on something he loves, which is basketball. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2020 with his daughter and several others in a tragic accident. And as I go into detail on Kobe Bryant, yes, there was the controversy or scandal he had with another woman at the time. And some people didn't like him for that. And some people were like, it's he said, she said. And that's an example of, do you think if that was to be done today, that they would end up giving you pretty much the facets of his life? Because I've seen documentaries or sports reporters talking about when Kobe Bryant passed at first, he was very kept to himself. And he was kind of like, either you do it my way or the highway, in the sense. And he was a very hardworking player for the NBA on and off the court. And by the looks of it, he was a family man. And his daughter, who passed away with him, was going to follow in his father's footsteps of becoming a basketball player, and a very good one, with the genes of the Black Mamba himself. So I could see that being done, but once again, is whoever decides to do it one day, is Hollywood going to portray it one-sided or share it all? It's up to them. Another one on this list is Michael Jordan. To my basketball fans out there, you have that conversation, or sports fans in general, everyone has that conversation of who's the greatest player of all time, Kobe, LeBron, or Michael. And that's always something that's discussed. ESPN, I believe, did it, but they did a series called The Last Dance. And in a way, it basically explained the era of the Chicago Bulls at the time, and kind of intro different players, including Michael Jordan. And there's going to be like a little bit of his history of a film called Air, where he got involved with Nike creating Air Jordans. So he was one of those players like Kobe Bryant. Either you follow my lead or get out of my way. He was a dominant player as well, winning several championships like Kobe. And yes, he did. Obviously, I'm gonna, to those who know, Space Jam, when he was in it, was that nostalgia for me. I grew up in that era, and nothing against LeBron, but I would assume they did it for today's generation, of the another Space Jam. But going back to Michael, it would be another interesting one of, I would think, from what the series showed, Michael Jordan would want to, is gonna share pretty much whatever he's willing to share. And who would take that mantle, and whoever could portray Kobe, taking that mantle of portraying one of the greatest athletes to ever play the sport of basketball. And as I now continue here, Robin Williams, you could say, or you probably have heard online, that easily one of the greatest comedians ever to be a part of Hollywood history. I would say yes, because I've grown up with his films in the early 90s. One of my favorite animated films of all time is Aladdin. I've seen behind the scenes of those, and he kind of like, he was just a fast going person, ad libbing, just adding different things which got added. And he was just an all around well talented person. What also, outside of something like that, several months ago, I hadn't seen it, but I saw his film Good Will Hunting. And at the time when I was taking college courses, I was reading the screenplay for Good Will Hunting, and that film is just so well written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, I believe, who did it. I might be wrong, but his acting chops as a serious comedian and as a comedic comedian was just up there. And I've heard of stories, and unfortunately, of his passing. Is the family going to be willing to want to share? Because what Robin Williams struggled through, a lot of people that aren't in this atmosphere struggle through as well, and it becomes more or less like a eye opener, or portraying it in the way of it being kind of like, you don't need to feel like you're alone. And I don't want to misphrase of how he passed, but yeah, I would say that'd be something willing to see. And in the bottom here corner, fortunately, another actor gone too soon. and and Chadwick Boseman, all of his films, he's played historical figures. He played a superhero that has been around since the 1960s. And his unfortunate passing was due to health issues, which is sometimes out of our control. For me, if you all know me or don't know me, one of the most important thing is I like to live life to the fullest and really just make sure that I just take care of my health. Um, I'm not trying to get like super fit in any, well, fit to a certain extent. Your health is the most important thing, nothing else. I care about my family, I care about my friends, and everything that I do in life. And that's what appears that Chadwick Boseman did when he was around. He cared about acting, he cared about the people he was with. It looked like he had a great relationship with his then wife. And it would be interesting to see where his start, how he got his start. And to some of you who may not know, before as he went to school, you can find this online. He went to Harvard. No, I am sorry. I'm going to look this up for a second. Howard, not Harvard, Howard University, and how he got started in the acting, or um, in the acting sphere, is someone by the name of Denzel Washington helped donate to the fund, and helped like these young up and coming theater people do like internships and stuff. So he's stated this in like a ceremony. Without Denzel Washington, there would be no Chadwick Boseman or Black Panther. So it would be interesting to see his story and how he's portrayed. And I don't leave a fifth one because it could almost be anybody else, any other sports figure. I'm a wrestling fan of the WWE, and to all those who aren't, yes, I know it's theater, but there's certain people that have been a part of that company that it would be interesting to hear their story. At the time of this episode's release, I need to look it up, or look it up right now. I've done it in the past. Chris Hemsworth, Thor, was in the works to play Hulk Hogan. If you don't know who Hulk Hogan is, he was one of the top tier popular wrestlers at the time, and back in the 80s. And he rose from the top, and his life has been through controversy since then. Another person, let me continue here for just a second. As I've brought up earlier, when should there be biopics on people? When you watch them, you want the movie studios to show you everything? Show me the good and the bad. Show me something that I didn't know about that person. But then sometimes when we all watch it, we're like, really? And then it's trying to be a little bit silly here, but in the bottom corner, that we feel like some of us feel that the movie studios are not lying to us per se, but felt that we didn't need to see that particular part, or feel that they're portraying them in the positive light or the negative light. And it's just depending on who's telling it, if it's the family of a specific person who's deceased or a person who's still living. It just really depends. So as we kind of just go throughout here, is when we see biopic films, we're going to get that fact and fiction. And I've looked it up on YouTube, and it's basically one of those that kind of is like, if you were to look up the recent Elvis film, there is the fact and fiction of what was true in his life and what was false. So it just leaves it open ended in the sense of just realizing that how can I say this? Did the movie studio want us to know that that person had a heck of a career and wasn't really honest? Or I don't know. And going back to a fifth person, I'm not saying this I'm kind of in the middle. Get your all thoughts. Someone that comes to mind, Michael Jackson, one of the most popular music performers of all time. He started out with his brothers, then went solo, had multi-platinum selling recordings, and then later on down the life experienced struggles and controversy. We all know the controversy he had, and pretty much what related to being legal reasons and things like that. You don't know, just can look it up. But I believe, from what I remember at the time of this recording, they're going to be doing a biopic of Michael Jackson, and it is going to be played by one of his nephews from one of his brothers. And it just depends if this movie goes through. Are they going to portray it in a certain limelight of his musical stratosphere stardom, or and then kind of like 90% of that is his his music career and maybe like 5% of the controversial stuff. It just depends. And because, like I said, we all like somebody, a political figure, sports figure, or and once controversy leads to their life or some form or fashion, we tend to go, or some of us tend to go, I still support I still support that person for what they did in their career, not the person what they did outside of their career or outside of the spectrum. So yeah, um, I'm not trying to stay quiet here. I'm just trying to think who else that I might have missed, that I might have left out. Is there any famous person that you're wanting to see? Musical artist. They just recently did. Now that I'm remembering, they recently did a film of Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston was a multi platinum selling artist who ended up dealing with personal struggles in life and led to her unfortunate demise or her passing. And yeah, so like I said, all of these famous people, they were like us. They started from the bottom, they worked their way up, they became important figures, and with that rich and that fame and that rich and glamour, that fame also probably led to many struggles. And it just depends on, do you have somebody that you follow, whether that be sports, politics, music, and if they were to do a biopic, would you want them to would you want them to tell the entire story of their life, or would you kind of want it to be, so as a hypothetical here, um 90% of like the positive stuff and 10% of like the negative? Or do you want it to be half and half? Because like I've said in the past, we're not all perfect. We've all made mistakes, and some of these famous people have learned from their mistakes and they try to turn a new leaf and they try to be better people. Sorry, they try to be new better people, and it leads to them just living a different life. Or to some, it ends up being in the sense of you still won't support them down the line, or once they're gone and they're not around anymore, they've passed, you still never supported them because you didn't like what they did back in the day. It's just one of those that, of any other sort of things, that it's not your cup of tea, of you don't want to see certain aspects of way stories are told. And like I said, that's how movies are, especially when it comes to biopics. But I completely forgot to start off. Please make sure to hit that like button, comment, let me know what's your favorite biopics. What is a biopic that you want to see based on somebody that you've watched throughout your life, whether that be a musician, a sports athlete, politician, somebody who invented the cell phone. I think, from what I've been told or have heard, that they were gonna do a biopic of the guy who made Hot Cheetos. There's so many other stories out there about famous people that have done something of importance, and that's what Hollywood's gonna keep doing. But whether or not we like it, that it is true or false, fact or fiction, um, whether it's a good majority of it is their success and very little of the failure and negativity surrounding them. So, yeah, that's it, guys. This has been episode number 11, I believe. And please make sure to check out anything new previous episodes of other podcasts if you haven't seen them. Anything, any of my previous projects and things to come on movie reviews, behind the scenes, talking about my short films and documentaries I've done. And like I've said in the past, I'm grateful for you all for watching, whether it's on the day of, later on down the line. I'm grateful for the positive feedback. I enjoy doing this, and there's plenty more things to come. I love movies. There's, like I said, going through the encyclopedia of topics to talk about for what's to come in later episodes. I am gonna have, you all haven't seen it, check out one of the latest episodes, Conversation with a Friend. I do want to talk with other friends and other movie topics of what they want to talk about and get their opinion on certain things. I might not be familiar, or I would be familiar with it. So keep your eye out on that. But in the meantime, guys, that's all she wrote. You guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye-bye for now.